Hello and welcome back. This is episode 30 of Ghost Creatures and Scares Oh My. This episode is called Paranormal Warnings. In this podcast, we take the entity featured in each episode of popular show Supernatural and explore creepy real life stories, myths, and legends that surround the theme. In this episode, Sam and Dean investigate the murders of a lawyer and his wife who claim to have seen a ghost right before they died. However, after local detectives Bollard and Sheridan look up the Winchesters' records, they arrest the brothers for a double homicide before they are able to find the ghost. When the ghost begins to visit Bollard, she begins to wonder if the tale Sam and Dean are telling her could be true and if she might be the next to die.
So is this the one where the ghost shows up before like a murder happens?
Yeah, but it's just sort of the show sort of spins it as if she's the one doing the murdering because she
Yeah.
just keeps showing up and then people are like sort of dying in the next scene. But then
Mm-hmm.
it turns out that it's like the guy, like the partner, and she's sort of trying to warn people that he's killing them.
Oh, spoiler, but we don't really
I
warn
mean, the show
people.
has been out like
Yeah, that's
years and
true.
years.
So that's what I thought I'd hone in on this one. I'm really excited. Are you to be back to doing
Oh yeah,
ghosties? Is that a word?
ghosties.
Yeah, but
Is apart from the true crime.
we've done true crime for two episodes, and we did vampires, and no, past lives.
Yeah.
So we're back to like a standard kind of ghost story, but we
Hmm.
have got a creature in here as well. So we're ghost creatures and scares. We're getting the triple threat this week.
The triple
The
threat.
triple threat. So this week we're exploring a range of paranormal sources on ghosts and other entities that allegedly appear before and after disaster strikes. We're going to discuss the legend of Mothman and ghosts from 9/11 and other world tragedies. Can ghosts warn us of impending doom, and do they linger long after disaster has struck? Let's dive in and find out. So thoughts before we dive in? Do you think that it is possible that ghosts or creatures can warn people about terrible events that are going to happen? It's like an omen.
Um, Maybe, but more so I think because there's like quite a few like films that say like certain animals and stuff in it show up like certain signs will show up before these sort of
Yeah.
things happen. Like crows are a big one in it. Is it
I
crows?
wonder,
Ravens?
again, I'm being cynical hat on. Is that because, like when tsunamis hit and stuff like that,
Hmm.
where they say that animals have got a sixth sense and they're more in tune with the natural world, and like you
Aye.
see the birds flying away. Has that evolved over time to be that birds are like birds have got like some kind of magical foresight, but actually it's
They just pick up the nature, don't they?
yeah,
Like
but
the
I
changing
wonder
the winds
I
and
wonder
stuff.
if that's why then.
Aye, maybe
Maybe that's why. So it's not supernatural at all. It's just like a
taken
science,
from that.
but people didn't realize that at the time. But yeah, in other things as well, isn't there? Like what's another one where it's I'm thinking of superstitions maybe with the mirrors and the stepping on cracks and stuff.
Aye.
So to begin, the concept of supernatural forces acting as omens has been around for centuries. Banshees appearing with their harrowing shrieks to foretell a death in Gaelic countries. Birds being omens of bad luck, ravens and magpies, and other legends of bad luck. And now we're going to have a little look to start us off at the harbinger in Nordic lore. So have you heard of a harbinger?
Yeah, harbinger of death in it.
Yeah, so it's used as a phrase. So people, it's more of like a harbinger of doom would be like a bit of a. Sometimes it's like used in tongue in cheek if you're a bit of a what's the word, like being quite depressing. People might say, "Oh, you're like a harbinger of doom. You always bring bad news." So do you know what a harbinger actually is? Because I didn't.
I'd have to assume like a creature like the a reaper type thing.
I just thought it was like I didn't think a harbinger was a spirit. I thought it was like a an energy. You know what I mean? Like a saying. But anyway, it comes from Icelandic Norse background, so Vikings. Apparently, originally the word harbinger was someone who went ahead to look for shelter. So it wasn't a supernatural thing. So do you know, for example, in the past, like you think of the Vikings, and they had lots of young kids and women back in their camp, shelter,
Yeah.
tribe, village, settlement, insert whatever. They would go ahead. It wouldn't be safe or practical to send everyone together because they could get there and it might not be suitable.
Hmm.
So a harbinger was the person, probably like one of the strongest people. They would send one of a group of them out to go and be like, oh, okay, this is a good piece of land. Let's go back, get everyone else and bring them here.
So scouts.
Yeah, I suppose. But it became a supernatural theory in Nordic law. Basically, it was referred to as someone who could tell the future or a sign of the future. So what I mean by that is the concept was a harbinger wasn't a threatening bad thing. It was actually a good thing. It was an echo of the future. So what happened was they realized that these men, often men, were going out to look for land, and then all of a sudden when they were waiting for them, the people back at the camp or the settlement would see them and say, "Oh, look, like they're coming back," and then it would just disappear. And the next thing you know, they arrived. Do you know what I mean? So it was like almost like their spirit had traveled from where they were ahead of time. It's like so a harbinger is a spirit that so in modern day times people think that they've seen this. So I read a story online. It's hard to explain this woman. Her husband was on his way home from work.
Yeah.
She'd been on the phone to him and she was preparing tea. The dog started going nuts. He was just in the house and he was like a bit vacant. And she's like, "Oh, that's a bit strange." Next thing you know, he'd gone. And then 10 minutes later, she'd freaked out. He pulled up in the drive and he was home, safe and sound. But she was like, "You've just been in the house." And he was like, "Well, I wasn't." And he said, "Well, all the way home, I was just thinking about coming in the house and sitting on the sofa." So it's a bit like a doppelganger.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, or some tragically, sometimes it's happened where they haven't arrived back. Like these harbingers have went out to look for land. They've all been perished, and people say, "Oh, they've come back," but actually they died. So you know what I mean?
I prefer the first version.
Yeah, but and I get that because I know for a fact animals have got a sixth sense, and there's loads of times when you've been out late at night and I sometimes you get a bit nervous when you're in the house on your own. And I know for a fact, Milo, he's like he stands up a little bit, and sometimes I've just had it, or I've just randomly woken up from a sleep, and next thing you know, you haven't been there. We haven't woken up because you put your key in the door. You haven't even been in the drive because a few minutes later you'll then drive in, and it's almost like a sixth sense. You know, if someone's thinking of being home and the driving
You do
home,
get that feeling, don't you, when a car
yeah,
comes in that you know it's like say your car.
yeah, uh-huh.
There's
It's just
a
interesting. It's
weird
like a
feeling
sixth
that.
sense, and I like that. So the theories are that it's a spirit. It's detaching itself from it's the soul of the person detaching itself, and the thinking that much about getting home that it transports to give the person at home a warning. It could be an evolutionary thing, I suppose, to warn someone that they're coming back, so they better have
Get
the cave
ready.
tidied up. I don't know. Have the like, the meat on the table. I don't know what caveman version. Other people think it's a glitch in the Matrix, that it's actually another you in a parallel universe doing something else. You didn't go out, you were in the house after all. Interesting.
Yeah,
Your theory?
I'd prefer it to be sort of. I get the whole energy thing, but maybe not the. It's a different universe one.
Yeah, see, I like them ones where it's interesting that it could be lots of different yous all at once, and they just happen to switch over.
Aye,
So, are you ready for your first proper story of a ghost who allegedly foretold a disaster?
yeah, come on
Right, so I'm going to tell you the story of the Moorgate crash. Have you heard of this?
then. Don't think so.
I took this story from spookyisles.com. So, on the morning of the 28th of February 1975, a train entered Moorgate Station on the London Underground's Northern City Line. The station is a terminus, yet the train failed to stop at its southern end and crashed into the end wall of the tunnel. 43 people were tragically killed and 74 people were injured. It was the worst peacetime accident to have occurred on the London Tube. No fault was caused with the train. No fault was found with the train, and the subsequent inquiry concluded that the tragedy was caused by the actions of the driver, not the train. The driver was a 56-year-old Leslie Newson. However, a post-mortem on the motorman, the train driver would suffice, on the train driver showed there was no medical reason to explain the crash or the driver's failure to stop. So, it was a really busy morning. The train's powering through. A terminus, I'm guessing, is like the end of the line, so it's going to
Hmm.
just hit a wall.
Yeah,
You would presume if there's nothing wrong with the train that you would presume he's passed out, had a heart attack, but there was nothing like that in his post-mortem. Because obviously he was a fatality as well, so it was totally unexplained. There was just in only he wasn't drunk or anything like that. No heart attacks. No, they said he didn't have a stroke. So then you would presume, well, has he done it on purpose, like one of these mass murders? But again, there was no signs of that. Do you know what
maybe
I
he just fell
mean?
asleep.
That could be possible, but we'll find out a little bit more. Gets a little bit creepy. Um, The brakes of the train were not applied, and the dead man handle, it's called, which is the accelerator, was still depressed when the train crashed, so he still had his foot on the accelerator, or his hand. It is thought that Newson's actions were suicide, so they thought that he was a suicide murder. Other theories put forward suggest that he was some way distracted by something or someone he saw in the tunnel, which I find a little bit hard to believe because if you're distracted, if you think you see someone in the tunnel,
You're
you
more
would
likely to stop, aren't you?
you more likely to brake. So that one's a bit strange. But this gets a little bit creepier because at the minute it's just a terrible tragedy. And by the way, that is awful when people do that. Why, if you're going to commit suicide, just
Go yourself.
I'm not going to say like the Nike slogan, but like don't take others with you.
Ah, yeah.
I don't understand that unless you're trying to go for some kind of weird infamy or you're angry at the world, but just don't do that. Okay.
Thanks for that, Amy.
So, a few weeks before the accident during the winter of 1974 to 75, workmen had been working on the tunnel where the tragic accident would take place. They were carrying out repairs at the station and they reported that they saw quite often a man dressed in blue overalls walking towards them in the tunnel at night. So they kept seeing this guy in blue overalls walking towards them and they were just thinking, well, who's he? Has he been sent from a different company kind of thing? Very strange. At first, they assumed he was a fellow worker, but as he approached, they were terrified to see that his face bore a look of indescribable horror. As they looked, the figure of the man carried on along the track before he'd vanish into the tunnel walls. Later investigations revealed that another workman had also seen this apparition, and it was thought to be the ghost of a maintenance worker who was killed by a train on that stretch of the line many, many years before. So his overalls were a bit old-fashioned for the time,
Hmm.
maybe like about a decade old, and there was a maintenance worker in that stretch of the tunnel who had died, hit by a train during like the nighttime repair works.
Yeah.
So they think it was him. Following the Moorgate disaster, many newspapers learning of the ghost sighting reported that the spectre may have well been seen by the driver, causing him to have a lapse in concentration, which led to the crash. So people think that he was there and then the driver's seen him.
Again, though, as we've already seen, like I said, surely if you've seen somebody in the track, it's more
Hmm.
likely you would have stopped.
You would have took your feet off the
Yeah.
hand off the accelerator and
Yeah.
tried to apply the brake.
Well, yeah. If you see somebody on the lines, I would assume
Yeah.
that the whole thing is to put your foot on the brake.
Yeah, you would think. Other people have got different ideas, which I think could be more believable. The ghost could have been a premonition. There are those who believe that the sighting of this ghost was a premonition of the Moorgate tragedy. Although we can be relatively certain that the track workers did indeed see something they could only explain as being a ghost, that it was a premonition of the coming disaster is arguable. However, the subsequent inquiry into the disaster discovered that a week before, driver Newson failed to stop at another station. Witnesses stated that he seemed to be in a trance, sitting straight up and just looking straight ahead, as if he was aware of something or someone and didn't even notice that it was a scheduled stop. So he's been caught doing it before, where someone that said he was just keep powering and nearly didn't stop, and he looked like he was just completely in a trance. So could he have been
I was about to
possessed?
say maybe he was possessed.
I put on here, that episode of The Supernatural is one of the first ones where they're on the plane and
Ah, yeah.
like, or could he have been realistically? Let's be more honest. Was he in that mindset of he was going to do this thing and he had a last minute freak out? He didn't go through with it.
Well, the first time though, he just didn't stop at a station. Somebody that wouldn't have been like a freak out with it.
Yeah, but has he just been like in a world of his own?
Maybe just had loads on his mind
Yeah,
and
just
just was just out
out.
of it. Yeah. Aye.
Or he could have been narcoleptic. I mean, they wouldn't known that.
Aye. Well, who's seen him though?
They
They're
just said
saying
he
like
was just
people.
powering
Well, yeah, but
past.
how would they know?
What do you mean?
You can't really see the driver, can you?
Or maybe in old-fashioned trains you can.
Oh,
I
I
don't know.
suppose maybe.
They said you could. So that was quite a scary one. On a scale of 1 to 5, one being absolutely not, 5 being believable. Do you think that was a ghost foretelling the future of a tragedy?
Nah,
Don't
two.
think. 2?
Not of one telling the future. They might have seen one
Right.
if I'm like an old worker walking up and down, but I don't
Mm.
think it was a foretelling of the future.
Do you think it's just two different things?
Yeah.
And it could have. I don't believe in ghosts anyway, so could that have just been another worker or even like a vagrant, a homeless person who's using the tunnel as a sleep like a house?
Well,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
aye. But I mean, even if it was like a ghost of someone, I mean, wearing old overalls or anything like that, like he didn't really warn the driver or anybody. We've warned a couple of workers who are working on the track in a completely
They're
different
not
place, so
these
it's not really a warning.
these ghosts. Sometimes they're argued as the next one we're going to argue is it shows up before tragedy, but this one I don't think it's been. It's just a harbinger of doom. It's not trying to warn you or stop you. It hasn't got that. It just shows up before. So it's the energy of something really bad makes these things come out apparently. So, story number two, we've got the Mothman. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, we've
Yeah,
seen him
really
loads of
famous.
times and stuff. Haven't
Lots of documentaries. He's a bit like America's version of the Loch Ness Monster, I think. It's like a famous creature. So, let's dive into him. The town of Point Pleasant in West Virginia, America, offers its residents a landscape once claimed for France by a 17th century explorer. A namesake battle place, many swear it's the first of the Revolutionary Wars, and also home to a bipedal humanoid moth-like creature with glowing eyes. The last of these local treasures is, of course, extraordinary. Lovingly dubbed Mothman, this creature has risen from local appearances to the national stage as a leader in the cryptid revival of the last 20 years. Cryptids are creatures whose existence is unsubstantiated, like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. How did I forget about Bigfoot and Sasquatch?
I was about to
That's
say,
more,
aye. Bigfoot's
Bigfoot's
probably
more
more the
Americans' Loch Ness, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah. I've never heard that word cryptids. Sounds like an insect. It's more like
um,
it's a mysterious creature, I guess. So these creatures are found in folklore throughout the United States and, of course, the rest of the world. The cryptid comeback not only brings exciting mysteries into the lives of outsiders, but it promotes pride of place to the residents of towns like Point Pleasant. According to competing theories, it was here on November the 15th, 1966, that the Mothman emerged from either the depths of hell or the upper echelons of space. Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallet were driving together on State Route 62 near the abandoned National Guard Armory building and power plant when they saw a menacing figure standing 6 to 7 feet tall. In the headlights of their car, giant eyes shone bright red. Panic set in. Roger, the car's driver, sped away towards town, but the creature followed. According to these first eyewitness accounts, the thing rose up like a helicopter. Though it was a clumsy runner, as they saw at the power plant, it excelled in gliding, easily keeping pace, even as the car reached 100 miles per hour. So I'm getting Jeepers Creepers vibes.
yeah,
So this young couple, two couples have been out driving and they've seen this gigantic thing, like a man slash moth with wings. I'm just thinking of Jeepers Creepers.
aye. That's what I'm picturing.
Can't run very well because his wings are probably weighing him down and he's just powering after them and gliding, half flying, half running. Really terrifying that with glowing red eyes. Oh, awful.
Kenny Grim like.
The creature's debut ruffled the town's feathers, making for an unsure headline the next day in the Point Pleasant Registry. Couples see man-sized bird creature something. The stereotypical inclination for a small town to form an angry mob heightened. Rather than raising pitchforks and torches for several nights, curious townspeople made hunting rifles their preferred weapon. With his initial contact, and according to written reports, Mothman would be responsible for a host of strange sightings and events in Point Pleasant and the surrounding areas. Mothman has been seen lurking outside of homes, chasing cars, and even stealing pet dogs. Stealing dogs? The day before Mothman stretched his leathery wings above the couple's cars, it's possible he made a stop at Newell Partridge's home in Salem, West Virginia. This account, chronicled in John Keel's book The Mothman Prophecies of 1975, tells of a German shepherd named Bandit who bolted into the woods after two glowing red circles. Partridge says that he looked for his dog Bandit, but he found nothing but paw prints going in circles and then vanishing. We'll never know if this was the true birth of Mothman's story. Two glowing circles may not a Mothman make, but Bandit's story would never have surfaced without the frightening tale of the Scarberries' close encounter. So thoughts so far?
Imagine if you like to know the first people who have seen this. Imagine if they like. I mean, for one, it could have just been something else that they seen. But imagine if like they made that up, right?
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, loads of other people start being like, "Oh yeah, I've seen it and stuff." And you like, imagine those people like no one have made it up, being
That'd
like,
be
"Ah, all these
hilarious.
people like chatting
Yeah,
crap."
but that would happen,
uh,
wouldn't it?
yeah,
Mary Hyatt, a journalist with the Athens, Ohio Messenger, the local news source for the northern neighbours of Point Pleasant, found herself covering these strange sightings and encounters. Her first article, entitled Winged Red-Eyed Thing Chases Point Pleasant Couples Across the Countryside. Not very catchy, these headlines, are they?
No, terrible.
Appeared without delay on November the 16th, 1966. She joined forces with big shot New York paranormal journalist John Keel for his previously mentioned work, The Mothman Prophecies. This non-fiction record of the odd occurrences and the subsequent 2002 film, which starred Richard Gere, would launch Mothman in the West Virginia town onto the national stage. I've never seen that film. And Richard Gere
Mothman.
is a big actor, isn't he?
Yeah, no, I don't think I have either.
That could be one to watch.
Oh,
I
aye.
bet it's rubbish.
Probably.
Really bad. By the time of the movie's premiere, Point Pleasant itself had lost direct sight of Mothman. The creature had laid low since the deadly collapse of the Silver Bridge in December 1967. So there was a bridge collapse, and we're gonna touch on this a bit more later. But ever since this bridge collapse and the Mothman was seen, um, as a kind of like a omen, he hasn't really been seen since. It's kind of done and dusted.
Yeah.
If he's been a real live creature, maybe he's died and he was the last of his kind, or maybe he's went back to space. I don't know. Maybe he's living somewhere with Bandit.
Maybe he went and found a new home. Maybe he was living under the bridge.
Yeah. Oh yeah, maybe that he just
And
got
he was like, oh,
displaced.
hang on a second. I have to
Oh.
go and find a new bridge.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's sad. Many saw no connection in an alleged sighting just before the collapse, while some viewed Mothman as a sinister harbinger of doom. Since then, Mothman seems to have kept to himself until recently. So he did start apparently, allegedly, coming out of
Of course.
the bridge. In 2019, accounts of a flying moth creature in Chicago stoked the paranormal creature craze. But as he makes national news once again, an NPR inquiry was entitled The Case of the Chicago Mothman. Lovers of the unknown and the unsubstantiated should remember exactly where his roots lie, and where a 12-foot tall statue of his likeness by Bob Roach stands in Point Pleasant. So he turned up in Chicago, but back where he's originated from, and it's pretty much saying there that that's where he really came from, and
Yeah.
there's a big statue of him, and they go nuts. They have like a Mothman Day and all sorts. Remember that one we saw? Can't remember what it was, the program, but it was like the town where it's based, they go nuts for him. They've got like merchandise, t-shirts, everything, tea towels,
Not to know
cups.
when this is the sort of thing that's supposed to have been like chasing people and stealing dogs and that. Like,
I know, gets rewarded.
aye,
Wamsley's museum offers Mothman history and produces an annual festival which grows in attendance each year. Had it not been for the pandemic in 2020, Wamsley estimates that Point Pleasant would have again welcomed crowds totaling over 15,000. This is a staggering influx for a town with fewer than 5,000 people living there. So that's
it's mental, innit?
tripling, isn't it?
Aye.
The amount of people who are there every year. That's insane. Mothman finds his way onto t-shirts, local cafe cookies, and Etsy shops. So, is the Mothman more than just a handy tourist gimmick to earn money for the town? Here are some reports that Mothman was sighted before major world disasters. So let's head to Chernobyl. On April 26, 1986, in the Soviet Union, the world's worst nuclear disaster occurred when an explosion took place during a routine systems test of Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear plant. The nearby town of Pripyat served as a base for the first responders, but was later evacuated due to the presence of harmful radiation. In the decades that followed the disaster, rumours have flown on cryptozoology inclined corners of the internet that Chernobyl workers and residents of Pripyat saw something very eerie in the days before the explosion. Reportedly, a winged, bizarre creature was seen flying over the town on numerous occasions. A few workers at Chernobyl also allegedly saw the same creature hovering over the plant a few days before it happened. Even stranger, those who claimed to have seen the creature were reportedly plagued by nightmares and harassed by incessant, threatening phone calls after. Many claimed the creature resembled a man like bird with red eyes, and some came to refer to it as the Black Bird of Chernobyl. Was the Black Bird of Chernobyl the same creature as the one seen prior to the Silver Bridge disaster? Was it Mothman? Or was it, some have suggested, merely a rare black stork? According to Lauren Coleman, it was neither. In 2010, the author said that reports of the Mothman Chernobyl sightings were entirely based on fictional accounts from the 2002 Mothman Prophecies movie. The Chernobyl story, the Galveston hurricane Mothman tie-in, and other examples given in the movie from 2002 were pure fiction. And right after the movie was released, various websites posted the Chernobyl/Mothman report as factual, but there is not one thread of evidence that any winged weirdos were witnessed before the Chernobyl accident. It's a bit of a movie fiction that has unfortunately moved into pseudo-factoid cryptozoology. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, I guess if there was a giant Mothman, it's probably somewhere that they'd want to hang out. A nuclear power plant.
Why?
I don't know. It's just something that you'd see in like next to you, loads of nuclear waste. Something that's like deformed and changed
Oh,
and
a
that in it,
mutant,
like a mutant in it.
like on Futurama. So
Yeah,
maybe it's been like a mutant bird,
aye.
man.
Which turned into a man, or maybe
Yeah,
a man and a bird fused.
yeah. Ooh.
Oh,
Imagine. He's just like trying to flap around, like, get these wings off
just
me.
practicing, and he just
Yeah.
trying to fly. Or maybe that was his next home. He's just like, "Oh, this is Harry. I live round here." And then that started going off. He's like, "What's this? I can't believe this keeps happening. First the
Not
bridge,
again.
now the bloody plant." Aye.
Oh, he's unlucky, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he really is like an omen of
Aye.
doom. If I see him flying around here, I'm moving.
Time to move.
Yeah. So 9/11. Following the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center on September the 11th, 2001, rumors have emerged that witnesses reported seeing a large crane-like figure in the vicinity of the towers 5 days prior to the attack. It had been 31 years since any such sighting of Mothman had appeared in North America. And on the day of the horrific attack, Mothman was reported to have appeared again. Some claimed they could see his face through clouds of smoke and debris. So I haven't dived into this one too much because there's not lots of evidence, but people think that it's come off the back of this film as well, where actually no, well, yeah, the film was 2002, but even though 9/11 was 2001, I bet you these rumors didn't start flying around until after this film came out.
Aye, probably. But
So
not like enough time that they could
no,
have fitted it into the movie.
and there's a lot of conspiracy theories which I'm not going to give the time of day that go into 9/11. It's a very like touchy subject which I'm not going to dive into, but I don't believe that at all.
No.
No. Okay, so the last sighting of Mothman linked to a tragedy before we finish off with one last little story is the bridge collapse, which we kind of touched on earlier. The first Mothman sighting occurred on November the 12th, 1966 in Clendenin, West Virginia. So I'm going to argue that one because apparently this is saying that this is the first Mothman sighting, but actually it was actually those kids in the car, wasn't it? Or
Uh,
young teens in the
I suppose,
car.
yeah, the people in the
But
car.
anyway, one of the first ones we'll see. Five grave diggers claim to have seen a human-like figure soaring just above them in the autumn trees. And days later, on November the 15th, in nearby Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a small city located at the meeting place of the Ohio and the Kanawha rivers, two couples both spotted a white-winged. Okay, sorry. So two couples both spotted a white-winged, human-sized creature with fiery eyes standing in front of their car headlights. So there's a few different sightings of him around the same time, which makes it more believable, actually,
Yeah,
that it died off after that.
unless they know each other.
Yeah, I mean,
You see grave diggers as well.
yeah, what's wrong with that?
Oh, yeah, I was just digging some graves the other day and I seen this massive moth-looking creature. Like, you wouldn't be like, like,
Put down the
what do they
whiskey,
do?
George.
Yeah, like, settle down, like, what you doing digging graves.
Yeah. What are you doing digging graves as a job? How
Oh,
you
oh, right, so
elitist.
it's actually, like, literally people who work in the cemetery.
Oh,
I just thought it was
it's not the
five.
1800s.
Yeah, I was thought it was five people, like, were like
Just grave
grave
robbing.
digging, grave robbing.
Yeah, I've been out grave robbing, which is totally
Aye,
illegal, but I'm going to come and report that
well,
I
yeah, that's what I
saw.
was thinking.
You'd be
That's like,
keeping your mouth
aye,
shut.
aye,
No,
nuts.
you do know that graves don't just like
Yeah,
automatically get
nah,
built and
nah.
like dug themselves,
I
don't
know.
you?
With five of them.
Fine, well,
Bit
yeah,
much,
it's a
isn't it?
shift.
I suppose.
God, you elitist. Don't you know who digs your own graves? I bet you don't know how much it is for a loaf of bread either. How much is it for a loaf of bread?
Like £1 20 odd these days, isn't it? £1 50 or something. I buy
Actually, I
more
don't know.
bread in this house than you do.
How am I meant to know?
And exactly, aye.
I'm just asking the questions. So, Steve Mallet was one of those witnesses. It was like a man with wings. He recounted to the Point Pleasant Register. It wasn't anything like you see on TV or in a monster movie. And another witness, Roger Scarberry, described the creature as having red eyes about 2 inches in diameter and 6 inches apart. Scarborough said that he had seen the creature by himself and he wouldn't have said anything if he'd been by himself. But there were four of us who saw it, and I kind of believe that. So that makes us believe this more because he's saying, if it was just me in the car, I would have probably talked myself out of seeing what I'd seen.
Hmm.
But there's four of us who saw it. They've all probably said, "Did you see that?" And they've, do you know what I mean? It's giving it
Yeah.
more credence. The sightings continued for months throughout the Point Pleasant era. And the mystery and fear surrounding the strange bird-like monster, it came to a head on December the 15th, 1967, when the tragic collapse of the Silver Bridge happened. So 46 people died when the bridge, which connected to the city of Gallipoli, Ohio, collapsed during rush hour. So this is terrifying. Um, During rush hour, this bridge obviously must have just been too much weight on
Too
it,
many cars and that on it.
and it's just collapsed. The destruction was blamed on a dysfunctional eye bar in the suspension chain, but some locals felt that something more sinister was at play and that it might be connected to the recent reports of this eerie creature. Theories arose around Pleasure Point that might have been a portal to an alternate realm, and that the Mothman creature, coupled with reports of UFOs, poltergeists, and bizarre life phenomena in the area, was somehow connected to the Silver Bridge tragedy. Some wondered if the Mothman was responsible, in fact, for the Silver Bridge destruction. Others hypothesized that despite the Mothman's frightening appearance, he might have been sent to actually warn the town of impending tragedy, and this is why he's kind of got a bit more of a hero reputation now, because actually he was just trying to warn people. As the legend grew, the questions surrounding Mothman's intentions remain, and so has the public fascination with the mysterious creature. The Point Pleasant incidents have been recounted in various media, including in the 1975 book The Mothman Prophecies by John Keel, which was mentioned, and he was on assignment in West Virginia during the Mothman phenomenon. We've also talked about the book, and there's another book written in 2002 as well by Lauren Coleman that was called Mothman and Other Curious Encounters. And as the Mothman story gained notoriety in pop culture, rumours of other times when the beast appeared prior to tragedy began to swirl, which is what we've talked about. We've talked about Chernobyl, 9/11, and this bridge. So, what do you think? Is Mothman real?
No, probably not.
Are you sure?
I
Do
don't
you
think
want
he
5 minutes
is.
to think about it?
Uh,
No,
I
he's
mean,
not.
like, yeah,
Great,
nah.
great,
It's good storytelling.
good storytelling and a great gimmick
Yeah.
to bring people to the town, just like Loch Ness and Bigfoot.
Aye.
Good in
I mean,
Salem.
good.
Well, sorry, Salem's not a gimmick
Yeah.
because real people died.
It's weird that he's like sort of being thinking as being like loads at other places. I mean, even in different
Yeah.
countries and that. Like,
I think that's because he was kind of localized to this area, and then with this film, it's
do you think they were angry?
who?
Imagine like this like local area. And say, hang on a second, they're trying to say that Mothman was over there. No, he lives here.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of territorial. I don't
Yeah.
think so because it brought like loads of
I suppose
fame.
that would have brought loads of
Yeah.
people to them, wouldn't it?
I had to squeeze this one in at the end because it felt natural to just to end on Mothman. But then, as I was reading about 9/11, a story popped up which was linked into the idea of ghosts around tragedies. So I'm going to finish on this one and see what you think because this one's kind of fascinated me. So, as well as Mothman sightings, many people claim to have seen figures among the devastation of the Twin Towers. People claim to have seen a monk and other angelic presences leading them to safety. So there was lots of stories with 9/11 of these people who would would have probably died and they were like stuck in the stairwells and that kind of thing. And the people said they saw monks, angels, and things like firefighters who weren't there, and they got out and they just disappeared, leading them out to safety. You could argue that's panic, adrenaline. You know the I don't know, but I'm not going to argue with these people who've been through
Well,
like
maybe it was a
this.
religious type thing, and it's sort of like
God and angel.
I like they appeared as what you believe them to be.
Yeah, you've got a thing with that. What do you mean?
I just think that maybe like if that's the case, and like they've shown up, maybe like say obviously if the person believes in angels, it was an angel that showed up. If the person
Hmm.
believes in like Buddha, then maybe monks or something showed up.
So that would suggest that it's all in your mind then, is that what you're trying to say?
No, not necessarily. Just maybe that's what showed up, what you believe in. Maybe it
Mm,
was different things, but I don't know.
I don't like, I'm quite cynical with stuff, but there's something about guardian angels where I think, you might just have something looking out
Well,
for
yeah, but
you.
maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe it was a guardian angel, or maybe there's a guardian angel across all these different religions. They just
Yeah.
appear. as what the person who believes in said religion thinks they look like.
because it would be easier for them to accept and trust them.
Well, yeah.
Okay. But this one is the most compelling. It's a vision of the nurse of of 9/11. So NYPD officer Sergeant Frank Mara was helping sift through the debris in the days after the attack. So obviously, as you can imagine, the awful, horrific attack, it left so much debris and damage and wreckage, and people were hoping they'd find maybe people in the wreckage, but it was more kind of a salvation to get the bodies out, sadly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this Frank Mara, who was involved in this, he reports to have seen a woman dressed in World War II style uniform, the Red Cross uniform.
Yeah.
So you can imagine like a very, very antiquated, like old fashioned nurse uniform. And the thing about 9/11 was it was cordoned off. It was such a big national security incident. They didn't just have local volunteers kindly popping in to help because, of course, there was toxic fumes that they didn't know what they were dealing with. Could there be a secondary bomb? Do you know what I mean? Within the building.
Yeah.
So only officials were there, and there weren't any nurses and things because, not to be grim, but there was no one to save. Do you know what I mean? It was purely, as far as I'm aware, like professionals like police officers and firefighters who had survived, and other units who had turned up to help clear this, masks geared up, you know what I mean? And this nurse was just wandering around in like a little dress. She was an old woman apparently, and she was carrying trays of sandwiches and coffee to help us. But it was a bit odd. You just remember seeing her. She wasn't actually giving these out. She was walking around with them, so no one. You didn't see anyone take them off her. She was just carrying this tray of coffee and sandwiches. And you remember seeing it, but with all the absolute horror of what he was seeing, it kind of just got pushed to the back of his mind. Um, and then a few years later, he was asked by someone if he'd heard the stories of the old Red Cross worker carrying coffee and sandwiches. Um, no one's ever come forward as her, and no one appears to have interacted with her. So basically, it was later someone said, "Oh yeah, there was this rumor there was like a ghost appeared," and he said, "Oh, ghost? Well, I didn't see anything unusual." And they said, "Oh well, yeah, she was like a World War II Red Cross in her 60s wearing the old fashioned uniform," and everyone said that no one had actually spoken to her. She was just carrying these things, and she would appear and she'd disappear. And he went, "Yeah, oh," and he all of a sudden he was, "Yeah, I saw her. Yeah, that's right." And there was a big push on the news and media to try and locate this woman. People said, "Well, yeah, she could have been there, but she could have died if she'd been in her 60s." And it was a few years later. She could have died from the fumes if she wasn't wearing the correct gear and masks. But surely someone would have come forward to say, "Yeah, like this was my such and such. She was helping. She was drawn in by paramedics and other volunteers." Said no one would have worn that outfit.
Yeah.
No one says that they took coffee from her. Or they just saw her, and they were so busy and traumatized that they just kept going. But they all noticed her. Uh, that's really intrigued me, that one, because could she have just wandered in from the nearby like another city?
Maybe she was a ghost from like one of the wars.
Yeah, one of the so could she be a kind helper? I've put down soul collector. Sometimes these ghosts appear in the days after tragedies because they're collecting the ghosts, the traumatized ghosts of those who've died in something like this to ease them on to the next. So maybe she wasn't there to help the worker, she was there to help the
Uh,
spirits, which is quite sad
yeah,
if
aye.
you believe in that. It's just really interesting that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is eerie, that one, isn't it?
It really left me with a bit of an eerie feeling, that one. And I can't unless they've caught sight of someone wearing a slightly old-fashioned outfit, and she did just pass away, or maybe she's moved abroad and she never saw the media to come forward and volunteer and say, "Oh yes, that was me, I was there." Um, yeah, strange, that one. Can't explain that one away. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of Ghosts, Creatures and Scares Oh My. If you'd like to stay updated on episode releases, please give us a follow on Instagram. Recommend us to your friends and family, and we are on YouTube now. Ghosts, Creatures and Scares Oh My.
Next time, we're continuing with the eerie and fascinating legend of Robert Johnson and his deal with the devil. See you soon. Hello and welcome back. This is episode 30 of Ghost Creatures and Scares Oh My. This episode is called Paranormal Warnings. In this podcast, we take the entity featured in each episode of popular show Supernatural and explore creepy